Hello and welcome, or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. Things are in a little bit of an uproar here today, so this may not be the most opportune time for me to be trying to film this video. Now, I have the big orange cat here in this room, and this one Siamese wanted to come in, so he was scratching at the door. Sometimes that is followed by an equal determination to exit, and so there's more scratching at the door. Meanwhile, the big orange fellow is looking like he wants to attack him, which is quite possible. Now, I was going to avoid all this. I was attempting to avoid all this by filming out back, and I made 2 attempts today to haul everything out there. And I just came in from outside and the noise was deafening. There was not one, but more than one helicopter in the air. I have no idea responding to what incident, possibly a neighborhood shooting. When there is a shooting on the street, generally the helicopter will come and just hover there all day. One of the book boxes that I frequent occasionally was dead center in a all-day helicopter cam shot. And because the 3 boys had been shot at right next to that book box, and one of them died. Now that was a couple or a few shootings ago, so I'm not really sure what possibly has happened since or what is going on. So I'm going to attempt this, and we will see how it goes. There's a bit of illness in this house, so I thought I would go outside on the back porch and spare everybody the extra yammering of me in front of the camera. But I think my partner, who is down for the count, will sleep through this. If not, we may have some unexpected interruption here. I am filming this probably 3 or 4 days before I post this, and so I feel like I should do it because I don't know if I'm going to be next in line. Usually that's how it happens, although last time it did not. So we will just see. This is a lot of preamble to no good purpose. My name is David Novak, and for about a year now, I have been a booktuber. It was an experiment I thought I would try. I was involved in a project to try to become a better reader, in part inspired by booktubers that I watch. And so I just decided to do it, started recording videos, and some time ago, maybe a month, less than a month, I crossed the threshold of having 1,000 subscribers. And that typically in the booktube community, when you cross a significant threshold like that, you celebrate by hosting a question and answer. Well, I put forth a call for questions, and it's taken me a while to get the things together and printed. So I'm going to take a stab at that. I'm not really comfortable here. I would much rather be outside, because even with this on right now, I'm feeling a little bit heated in here. So I should say to everybody who has subscribed, or even people who come and watch incidentally, thank you very much for coming to the channel and paying attention to these, what I would consider possibly inane things that I have to say. It is unimaginable to me that I would have people now and again come and devote some of their precious time to my videos. So I'm very appreciative. I have to say that in my previous life, I was a writer, and writers are very solitary beings. The world is changing, and so that may not be so anymore. There are writers groups, and there supposedly is a thing called WriterTube on YouTube where people get together and talk about writing. Now, a friend of mine through Facebook was for about a year a member of a writers group in Georgia, in Atlanta, and he just posted that he was resigning from the group or leaving the group because he said through that course nobody really wanted to talk about writing, which was what he hoped for. They were all talking about marketing and selling. So the Orange Cat has made his dive. I don't think he's being exceptionally malicious today. I could be wrong on that, but I think he's just been kind of bored. Oh, we'll see what happens, what this leads to. But writing is, in my view, not something that you really need a lot of face time with peers to accomplish. You really need to have your sheet of paper and your writing implement. Some people I've heard use a keyboard and just spend the time and do the necessary work. In my case, of course, it was a little bit different because I was primarily a writer of poetry, and then that there may be some effort involved, but primarily you are waiting for the muse to come and visit you. And I was fortunate I had a good number of visitations that came to me, even as this cat occasionally does. So I put out the call for questions and got some, and even though the video may go over long, I will try to just barrel ahead and encompass everything in one video rather than trying to parse it out. I'm sure I could talk about everything ad infinitum, since a lot of this is talking about self, and I think any of us is an endless fount of information and anecdotes about ourself. So I will share what I have. I printed out everything. Some people asked more than one question. There was a little bit of duplication per questions, and I thought that, well, I will answer the question the first time it comes around, and then if I see it again, I will simply try to expound upon the first answer that I gave, rather than saying, oh, I already answered that, I'm not going to say anything. So my first question came from Peg, the book prize addict, who has a channel. Actually, most of these persons who had questions for me are channel, what is the word? Channel hosters on BookTube. And she asked, what is the story on the unusual artwork hung above you? It really caught my eye when wandering through BookTube and resulted in my subscribing to your interesting channel. Keep up the good work. Well, and then some emoji. So in most of those videos, those are prints of works done by Yoshitomo Nara. And if you go back to my old videos when I first started this channel 3 or 4 years ago, you will see there were a different set of pieces on the wall, sort of animal portraits that were kind of fun. And we had those up for a long time and grew tired of them, but never did anything about it because we didn't really have any ideas as far as what we could come up with to replace those animal portraits. And somewhere in one of my feeds, Facebook, I was getting an ad for a book. It was one of these fancy publishing houses. Is it Phaidon, that puts out a lot of art books, and it was a collection of reproductions from Yoshitomo Nara. Now, my partner and I, one of our favorite pastimes is to visit museums. And so we've seen Yoshitomo Nara's artwork here and there all along, never putting any extra special weight or emphasis on it. But when I saw that book, somehow we started talking about it. I clicked on the link and my partner and I discussed it. And we thought, wouldn't it be nice to have something like that on the wall? And she went online and hunted down some prints. And so we got those three. We also have another one that is a lot bigger that we have no place for. And they were not expensive prints. And once we had them, well, we had to get them framed. And so we did that. The framing, I can't remember the price now, but it's like the cost for framing was probably like 100 times the cost for the print itself. The thing was they were printed with like no extra border space to be wrapped around a canvas or anything. So it was an additional expense, but we decided to just knuckle down and do it. And they have served very well. We actually like living with them more than we did with the previous animal portraits that we had. Yoshitomo Nara is an artist who comes into the news periodically. I think it's recently somebody found in a thrift store an ashtray or something with some kind of design by him on it, and it turned out to be worth millions of dollars. And periodically a canvas or something like that will appear, and such an event makes the news. He is a artist living in Japan, I believe, and but I don't know too much more than that. Just that they have given us a lot of pleasure. Then I have a question from, well, a couple of questions from Renee at Beyond Books, and hers is a channel that I watch regularly and invite you to do as well. And she asks me, what got you interested in poetry? Who are your favorite poets and why? What inspires you the most? So, what got you interested in poetry? I have a whole video about my relationship with the muse, and I think it's called 50 Years with the Muse, and I will try to remember to put a link, and that really goes into the nitty-gritty about things. When I was in 6th grade, a teacher assigned us to write a poem. I had not known what poetry was, and it was a overwhelming experience for me, and it changed my life. Now, I did not start writing at that time, but sometime in high school, I'm pegging it to my 3rd year English class. I was simultaneously in my 1st year of college, and so I had a couple of teachers, and they were covering a lot of the same material. I could not skip 3rd year English. It was a requirement for the state. If I wanted to graduate, I had to do that, and so I did. But having duplication among the material helped me. And so in both classes, we had Emily Dickinson, we had E.E. Cummings, and it must have been after all of those. My high school teacher also gave us a little, what are they called, mimeographs of Erica Jong's poetry. And somehow, having learned of the possibility, I started writing, but I can't pinpoint the exact date for that. I mean, I'm pretty sure about that initial 11-year-old's experience in 6th grade. So that doesn't really exactly say what got me interested. The Emily Dickinson poem that really influenced me was Much madness is divinest sense to a discerning eye, much sense the starkest madness. 'Tis the majority in this as all prevail. Assent and you are sane, demur, you're straightway dangerous and handled with a chain. And that exploded upon me with a flash of clarity, and I understood the truth of it. And I think that in a world of confusion, I was always looking for clarity. And so I glommed on to poetry. Other people have credited Emily Dickinson with saving their lives. I have met more than one, and it is not uncommon or unusual, I think. So I was seeking for that clarity. Who are your favorite poets? Renee also asks. And I would say my English trifecta would be Blake, Keats, and Donne. So William Blake, John Keats, and John Donne. I've shown previously the Penguin complete editions of each of those three, and they have been my bulwarks, my stay, especially when I was really learning and reading poetry all the time. I've said, since I came out with a book of sonnets in, well, I don't know when it was written. It was written maybe in '98 or something. I really slowed down on my reading of poetry. I've been getting back into it a little bit lately, which is kind of interesting. So they were my favorite poets, and why? I think because, again, there is that clarity for me. I found it there. They are formal poets. Their verses have structure to them, and to me, as a reader, there is a comfort with that. You have a quatrain with, say, a rhyme A B A B. You know that when you get to that last line, there's going to be some kind of rhyme with the penultimate line ahead of it. That's not what I mean to say, but I'm confused at how to say the line but one before it. And there's a satisfying feeling to that, or a satisfaction to that. And so I immediately felt at home in poetry. And what inspires you the most? This is a tough question. Usually it's something sort of bad. I mean, it may just be that I see a beautiful woman. This, of course, I'm saying it in the present tense, but this is all past tense, a long time ago. And I'm just overwhelmed and have to write something. But over the years, I have found that just as likely as not, it's some kind of stressful situation. So, like if I were working at a job and say I committed some kind of crime, I put my hand in the cookie jar of some sort, and it was a really bad thing to do, or so I was feeling, and then I was real anxious about it. And that kind of anxiety would lead me, say, when I got home to write. So there's both positive and negative forms of inspiration. Now, if we're talking about American poets beyond the English, then of course it's Emily Dickinson first and foremost. I really can't think of another name that holds that place in my heart. Number 3, Priscilla at the Evening Reader asked, if you could do a literary pilgrimage, what would it be? And I answered something like this recently, or talked about it, and my prime destination right now would be Amherst. That's how I say it, but somebody corrected me. They said locals will say it Amherst. Uh, the the home of Emily Dickinson, and I believe her brother's house or something is right next door to it. And I would like to go there. I've always been gratified with seeing the homes of literary figures that have meant a lot to me. I say always like it's something I do every day, but I haven't. I saw the Paul Laurence Dunbar house in Dayton, Ohio, and I saw the apartment wherein John Keats died, overlooking the Spanish Steps. In fact, when I put out my compilation book not that long ago of older poems called Amplitude and Dispersion, you're looking out windows on steps, and I just used a photo from that visit. The apartment, or the whole building actually, has been turned into a museum devoted to him and to Shelley. So I have not been to Emily Dickinson's stomping grounds, which people will tell you it's just her house. But I would like to go there, and I would also like to visit any of the houses that belonged to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I believe there exist more than one. So he's another favorite American poet of mine, and so those are the places that I would most like to see at this time. Okay, Joshua Crebo, who has a BookTube channel as well, has a few questions. And so, number one, who are your favorite musical artists, composers? Well, I'm not really a studied person in music. When I was young, I took voice lessons, and I took opera lessons, as a matter of fact, and from that I started working backstage at a couple of opera companies, and got into theater eventually, and got rid of the musical aspect as far as my focus. But my teacher said, well, the first thing you've got to do is join a chorus. And so I did. There was a chorus called the North Shore Choral Society, and I sang with them for quite a while. I can't remember. I can't quantify it now by years, but they were a community chorus. It was overblown. They had more sopranos than anybody could ask for, and of course, not enough tenors. But through that, I made my first tentative explorations, or I had my first introductions into music. So when we sang Mozart's Requiem and the other one that's often paired with it, the Vespers, I think, I felt, oh, if I could only live in a world of pure sound. But as far as composers, I'm very much a Handel man and also a Bach man. So both Handel and Bach, Baroque figures whose lives are curiously, almost exactly coterminous. And I've loved their music. If we're talking about, say, more generally, when I was young, I on a blind whim, picked up an 8-track at the record store of Buddy Holly, and I loved Buddy Holly very much when I was young. I even got the boxed complete set when it became available. I don't even know that such a thing exists anymore. And as an adult, grown beyond my youthful taste, I still like his music, but I hardly listen to music now Some years ago, my partner responded to some deal where we got Sirius, which is some kind of music streaming service for use in the car. And they have like hundreds of channels that you can listen to. And the only channel ultimately that was bearable was the Beatles channel. So I got really familiar with the Beatles repertoire. And so I would say, you know, and that of course is just bleeding on from Buddy Holly, who inspired them as well. And I would say the Beatles probably have to be up there for me. And I'm sure we could talk about this about music and about different composers, more modern composers, but I really have no sort of comprehensive view of you know, what is called classical music. I just know little bits here and there of things that I have been exposed to by chance. Lately, we have, for the last few years, we've become huge fans of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And so I'm getting exposed now to composers I had never listened to, like Shostakovich and Mahler and stuff like that, because my focus for a long time had been pretty exclusively Baroque. Number 2, you've said that you have spent time in Asia before. How did you become interested in Asian culture? And that was, I became interested just by going there. When I was in college, I went to the University of Illinois, Chicago Circle, and it was my first year, and I was thinking I was going to become an artist. So I was in art classes. Well, I had 2 years prior to that in a junior college, and I had taken commercial art under a teacher named Pete Bagnolo. I think that was how he pronounced his name. It was a well-respected program. He was a well-respected teacher at the time. When I got to Circle campus, I took their first year foundation art courses. And that's where it taught me ultimately that I did not want to be an artist. But I met a young woman in one of my classes, Naomi, and she was Japanese, and she was going back to her family home for the summer, and she said, why don't you come visit? So I did. And I spent a week or possibly 2 weeks imposing on her family's hospitality. And then I think they kind of let me know that I probably have to move on. And I went on. She checked me into a hostel, not a hostel, I can't remember those little Japanese inns. I can't remember the name of it. And from there, it was like, whoa, this expense is going to kill me. And I found a hostel and got hooked into the whole Travelers Network at that point. And then I stayed in Japan, I think for like nine months or something totally, with a little break for an excursion to Korea. And so it was just a matter of being there in the environment that got me interested in Asian culture. And after Japan, I went on to Taipei, Taiwan, and then to Singapore before coming home. And Taipei, Taiwan, it was Chinese culture. And I don't know, at some point I just thought, well, I'm going to study this. And so I took classes. I maybe when I went back again, because I was at home, I really don't remember the sequence of things anymore, because I came home, I had to finish up school because I hadn't done so. I wanted to clinch that degree, and so that required another year of study, and then I went back. And then it has just been that I've spent a good part of my life involved with persons of Asian descent, I guess you would say. My partner is a full-fledged American citizen. Her father was born in Chicago, but Chinese culture runs deep, and so that's how it's been. It's just there. I mean, it's become just as natural as the next thing, you know, why are you interested in English culture or whatever? Well, just because it's there. That may not be the best answer, but 3, do you speak any other languages? And I do. I speak a little bit of Mandarin Chinese. At this point, we're talking about what I spoke 40 years ago, so I don't think, lost a lot from then, but my vocabulary is fairly limited. I can make do if I need to on the streets, say in China, although I prefer the accent of people from Taiwan at this point. They have a real smooth, silken way of speaking, I may say, as opposed to, say, the harsh, grating sounds that one hears in Beijing. I can do passably with Spanish on the street, say in Mexico. When I was young, I went down there here and there, but with a lot less fluidity. And then something like, you know, I studied some Italian. That's just a total washout for me. I could not get out of a paper bag in Italy with my Italian. What got you interested in writing poetry? Well, that's sort of been covered. It became ultimately a way of focusing my mind. My upbringing was pretty can't think of the words I need right now. Pretty unfocused, for sure. Our household was kind of chaotic, even a shambles, you might say, in some respects. And so poetry really gave me something to focus on. I think it is ideal for such a purpose, probably beyond other sorts of writing. Now, this one is hard to see. Curious, CURIOUSHMM 9027. Well, I have just one fairly silly question, but here goes. What prompts your choice of hats on the occasions you wear them in a video? Well, so we're talking about choice of hats as opposed to should I wear a hat or not. So in this case, I put this hat on. This one was the most easily graspable one. I'm wearing hats more now because I just shaved off all my hair, and that's when I tend to put them on more, but not exclusively by any means. But so if it comes to one or the other, the weight of the hat might determine it. If one is too hot for me, I'll put on a lighter one. Maybe I'm feeling like I want to, show off something. But generally speaking, those are not the case. It's generally something more mundane, like when I go into the closet that has all the hats on their little pegs, if, say, a cat has gotten into that closet, and when the cats get into a closet, it's like nothing is off limits, and a bunch of them have come down, and so they're all on the ground filled with all kinds of hair, then I will opt against that particular hat. As opposed to cleaning it right then and there, I will just find one that's good. So that explains one choice to another. Or if I've gotten a new hat, I think I wore a beret a couple of times, and it was just a brand new hat, and I was going to try it out. And then there is another use, possibly a little bit more rare though. If I'm going to film videos back to back, and I just want there to be a little change, I'll take one hat off and go put on another hat. So you might see me with like the same clothes. A lot of videos are just me in the black t-shirt, which is pretty common around here, and I have a lot of those, so chances are that's not the same one. But I'll do that. I am too lazy to get up and like change my shirt or something to if I'm filming. But I as I say, I don't like to do that. I like to film and then publish the next day without worrying too much. I hope that is a good answer. Now, Book Chat with Pat has a video channel that is all over the place now, and she asks me some good questions as well, and I will take them one at a time. She says she could have had more, so maybe if I get to 2,000. I have to say, in regards to the whole numbers thing, when I was growing the channel up until the time when I crossed over that 1,000 threshold, every like 100 or so, you'd be real aware. Oh, I've got 100 subscribers, and then as Bookless Pete was saying in a video that he just posted, you watch it, and oh, the next time you look, oh, it's down by 2, and since I crossed that 1,000 mark, I mean, I just haven't paid attention at all. And I don't even pay attention to the numbers of views a video gets. But up until this 1,000 mark, I did every day. I mean, I would look. YouTube makes it so that you can't avoid that stuff hardly. Well, you can avoid it by just not really giving into it or by having other things on your plate. But it really surprised me that this 1,000 mark has affected a complete change in all of those behaviors. And I'm quite pleased with it, actually. So Pat's first question is, when did you start writing poetry? I'm guessing in my teens, 15 or so, 16, something like. I mean, it was not a direct outflow from those classes that I had in high school. I mean, that third year English class or that first year college class. I had been doing it before that, I believe, but the thing that both of those classes did was put the imprimatur of tradition on it, and I, for the first time, began to learn about the heritage of English verse. And of course, Emily Dickinson and E.E. Cummings were pivotal for me, but both of them are traditional in their way. They do things a little bit extraneous to that, but and that really brought me into the study seriously. Number 2, did you have many influential teachers when you were in school, high school or college? And if you did, would you be willing to talk about any of them? I certainly would. I'll stick with high school. My biggest influence, I think, in college was my teacher, Paul Carroll, and I've done various videos here where I describe the poetry workshop class I had with him or his influence upon me. It may well be the one about my experience with the Muse, or the one where I'm defending E.E. Cummings. I think that one was the one where I talked most largely about him, but he crops up again and again. But I would like to talk about my high school teachers. So, and a very important teacher was Denis Svoboda. He was a foreign language teacher at the high school. And recently, and I put it in the community tab, I found a video that he had done after a long life spent as a teacher. Now, when I started my first year in high school, I got placed in the sequential Spanish class because in junior high I had taken Spanish, and it was just way above my head. I couldn't do it. I was failing. I was going to get a D for sure. It would have been a generosity on the teacher's part to give me a D. And I was also failing all over the place, I think. I mean, I wasn't doing well. And the solution to the problem came in the form of switching class, and I think my counselor arranged for me to drop out of sequential Spanish and to take up just regular Spanish. So they were starting, and so that first whatever quarter or whatever it was, I was in my element well enough, and the teacher was Senor Svoboda, and he was just a wonderful, dynamic teacher, and if I can find his video again, I'll link it. He looked nothing like that now. His video intersperses pictures of him when he was young. He was remarkably young for a teacher. The talk at the time was that he had dated one of the students before he got the job as a teacher in the school. And I think there was some truth to that, but he was totally an above the board guy. And then I went off to Asia, did my thing. There were these round the world tickets. So when I went to visit my friend in Japan, I bought a round the world ticket. That was how that went. It was a big thing they were promoting back then. And spent the time in Japan, spent some time in Taiwan, and then came back. And sometime after that, I went to visit Senor Svoboda. Now, I should say also, because he was such a wonderful teacher, I also, after that first year Spanish, I then added to my repertoire first year Italian. And so I got a good grounding in Italian as well, because he taught both Spanish and Italian, and that he talks about that in his video. I went to visit him at the high school, and we walked out to this little outdoor eating place not far from the school and talked. And he told me he was really kind of getting burned out. He had been a teacher for about 10 years, and he said, he said to me, you are an exception, and there's a few students like you who really are interested in the subject and take, they learn, and they really care about everything. He said, but that's not the majority. He said, most of them, they're not interested. They just want to get by. And after 10 years, it's really, really bothering me. And I really wish I could do something like what you're doing. And I didn't know what happened to him. I saw years later when the internet came around, I tried looking for him and saw his name somehow having something to do with Manila, and I thought, maybe he went off and he did something. And so it was not really until this video that I got confirmation of his how his whole life has gone. I mean, what a wonderful man. I just you're young, you're in high school, and you're totally lost, and you don't know what the hell is going on. I had poetry, which was a rescue, and I had a couple of good teachers as well. So he was one. First year high school freshman English was Miss Johnson. I'll just tell about her briefly because she humiliated me. She kept this big mallet. It was a big plastic mallet in the class. Nobody could do this now. And when I said something wrong, or I was dumb or whatever, or I hadn't done my homework, I can't remember now, she would go to the locker, or have one of the other students go to the locker, bring out the mallet, and then she'd bring the mallet and she'd whop it down on my head. And it was not a painful thing. She was just trying to humiliate me in front of the whole class. And it worked. As I say, I don't know that this kind of thing would pass. And I was the only one who ever got this treatment as well. When I divorced my experience in the class from that, I realized she wasn't a bad teacher. She taught the lesson on the Odyssey. I think we had to read something by Homer. It was state law. And she gave us a film of somebody who retraced the steps, and she gave us a mimeograph, which I still have, of the Cavafy poem Ithaca. I looked her up more recently to see if I could find anything about her. And not a lot, but enough to know that she had died, and I think there might have been an obituary that I found, and she had been one of those teachers who take advantage of their summer and was a huge traveler. And back in those days, traveling was not what it is now. I mean, it was extraordinary for people to travel, and she traveled all over, and she knew culture. I mean, I grew up in a suburb where there was no culture. I mean, come on. And my family had no culture at all. You know, that's also why I became a poet, because culture does not come from culture, so to speak. Culture comes from nothing. And so I wish I could go back and meet her. I mean, if our ghosts are revived in heaven, I would love to meet her and talk to her, because she sounds like, except for that humiliation she inflicted on me periodically, she sounds like she must have been a wonderful person. And then that third year high school English, when I had to take an English class simultaneous to my full load of college courses. That was first period in the morning so that I could go, and there was a second period, second year Italian class, which I just sort of audited. Signor Svoboda let me sit in on it. And so I did that, and then I would go out for my day as a college student. And I liked college a lot better because the students were mature. I remember in one class by a teacher named Mr. Bilecki, it was philosophy or something, and this one student got in an argument with the teacher, and they were engaged, and it was really nice. And that was what I found with the college students. The high school was a sort of horrendous milieu for me, so that was why I wanted to get out. It was not that I was like some brainchild, but that teacher was Ms. Kauser, let me say. At the end of Christmas break or whatever, she said to us, she was kind of burnt out a little bit too, you could see that. She said to us, well, when we come back, either I haven't made up my mind. Either I'm going to change my name or I'm going to change my hairdo. And she did. So when she came back, I think her last name was Reif. And I think that was her original name. When she married, she became a Kauser, but that marriage did not last, apparently. I mean, I didn't really know much about her. She gave us the Erica Jong, and I think she was a bit of a wannabe poetess herself. I mean, that would be the word that would have been used back then. And she was frustrated with us because she would say things and nobody in the class would answer. She said, it's like you're a bunch of eggs, you know, and just nobody will say anything. And so she would do that thing where she would just once in a while say things to just get a rise out of people. So one time she had cats, apparently. She liked the cartoon cat, Heathcliff. And she just offhandedly said, well, sometimes when I'm bored, I throw my cats against the wall. And of course, that got a rise out of everybody. And she said, well, I was just saying that. But she told personal anecdotes, like the time she had gone to Paris and she was with somebody and she used the phrase, to somebody, you really Jewed him down. And that was her first awareness that was not the sort of language that you use in polite company. So she was a very interesting woman. Sometime after, I happened to go to a movie theater. It was for this French movie. I can't. People thought it was the Return of Beau Geste or some kind of goofy movie. And I was there, and I saw her come in with a guy, and it was like she's on a date, and I said, And I just held my tongue. I thought the last thing she wants on this date is for little David to come up and talk to her. I wish I had, though. I don't know where she is. I made mention of her in my big poem, The Requiem. So, this may go on a lot longer than it ought. Who were your favorite poets when you were younger? Robert Service and E.E. Cummings. Robert Service was probably the first poet that I found. My Mom pointed him out to me, his book, and I got one. And I believe her mother read some poetry. So there were a couple of books that I held on to them for a long time after I found them. But she was a reader of Robert Service. She was Welsh, I believe, and so of course the whole Welshness thing contributes to the whole poetry experience, because of course the best poets are from Wales. I'm just making one of those statements to get a rise out of you. I'm not really saying that. So those were, and then who are your favorite poets now? And I really don't know. I don't read anybody now. It's just so rare. And I am at this stage where I don't really distinguish between writers of poetry. To me, they're all the same. Charles Bukowski is exactly the same as I just did a video about Robert Creeley, say him, or say Robert Herrick, exactly the same. I just don't make any distinction anymore. Of course, those poets that have been tremendous milestones to me still retain their place in my, what is it, a cosmogony or cosmology or something, whatever, this world that exists in my head. But anybody writing, I don't read it very much, and I don't have any feelings about it. What kind of reader were you as a child? Lazy, very incompetent. I wasn't a reader, basically. I read a little bit here and there, but I was not studious. I was not industrious. I learned a technique for getting through college, which was, instead of studying the books, if you just paid real close attention to everything the teacher said in class, then you could do well on the test. And that always worked for me. But I generally didn't read anything. Even when I was taking like literature classes, I didn't do a lot of reading. Has having a BookTube channel changed your reading tastes in any way? And if so, how? Yeah, it has. I've started reading more things. I mean, last year I read some natural science. I tried reading Les Miserables, wholly based on BookTube. My feeling that I can accomplish a bigger book entirely stems from people that I have watched on BookTube. Now, come on, dude. Come on, don't do that. He wants to mess with, come on. I know. Okay, no, come on. They get something in their mind. Why don't you come here? Come on. You don't need to be doing that. Come on, dude. Yeah, come on. Thank you. They get something in their mind and then they can't let go of it. I mean, that's basically how animals are, and people too, to a degree, I think. Where were we? So it's changed in that respect. It's also changed in that it's made me more dedicated. But that's part of my project, and I've picked up tips from everybody about how to be a better reader, and it's been very helpful. So I am more dedicated. I have a longer staying capacity with a book. I also have better capacity as far as sticking to a book that I don't really like that much. Les Mis kind of toppled me in that regard, but something smaller, if it had been a 200, 300 page book and I didn't like it that much, I could still read it and derive value out of it. So it's really helped my reading. Brian at Bookish Texan, also another marvelous channel, said, well, this was the hardest question of them all. First, what are your favorite Chicago places. I love every place in Chicago. It's just any place coming in from any location, you're in the car, whatever, and you get a view of the skyline. We've got the best skyline in the world, and I love seeing the skyline. So any place I can see the skyline, I love it. I love being at the lakefront. So that's another place. I like during the time of COVID, my partner and I started going to all of the forest preserves everywhere with our dogs. And I love, there are a couple of different ones that I just really love. There's one up north called Greenbelt. That's not in Chicago, that's Chicagoland. There's one out west, I think it's Fullersburg Woods, which is near the landmark Growy Mill. And we just went there a month or two ago, and there used to be sort of a dam across the thing, and the dam is kind of, see, he's back to it again. Come on, dude. You know, and it's in a position where I can't grab him that well. You know, and they decided that partly because, I don't know, kayakers, I guess, you know, the dam, of course, impedes their progress. And dams are generally a bad thing, too. It's been part of this stretch of the river or the creek for, you know, 100 years now. But there was some argument, I guess, in the neighborhood about whether they should revert it back to how it used to be. And the last time we were there, apparently the reversionists won out, and all the trees, I mean, were all torn up everywhere. There was heavy construction equipment everywhere, and the old trails are still there, and we walk the dogs, but I don't think we'll be going back. But there are numerous other places we like as far as forest preserves. I like walking State Street in the Loop, Michigan Avenue, but the lakefront is really it. Millennium Park, it was a sort of it felt like a travesty when it was created, the Bean and all of that, but it's actually proven to be a place that I really do love. You wouldn't have expected something like that out of the Richard M. Daley administration, but so it is. And I like my neighborhood, which is Edgewater. I like going to Paris Baguette. So those are some things. And I have grown to love Symphony Center, where we hear the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. It's probably my favorite of the old-time auditoriums that we have. It's just a beautiful place. And then the second was, what is the story of the paintings behind you in this video and in many others? And I've talked a little bit about that. My partner and I really like to go to museums. And when I was younger, I had a friend who was a librarian, and he kind of, my partner liked museums, but she would only hit like the big ones. So, you know, if you're in Paris or whatever, you go to the Louvre and that's it. Or the Louvre and the d'Orsay, you know. But this friend of mine who was the librarian kind of taught me that there's all kinds of little museums all over the place, and they're all really worthwhile. And so just in our years together, my partner and I have made a habit of going to museums, and big ones, small ones. And so art has become increasingly a thing of importance to us. And it's not in the sense of, you know, we'll go to a museum and look at a painting that we like and then move on to the next one. I mean, it's not like, oh, I have to go down and squint who did that. I'm never coming back, chances are, but I don't necessarily need to know who did it. I mean, of course, every single museum in the world has a Van Gogh, and you know his stuff right off. And yeah, there's a good handful of painters that you know their stuff, or sculptors, and you know their stuff right off. And that number, of course, increases with time, but it's not really what she and I like art for. It's for the beauty that it instills into one's life. And those little girl portraits done by Nara, I think that was his name. I really, Yoshitomo Nara, I forget things so easily. Just have really brought the right touch of levity. How he manages with just minimal lines, just, you know, the figures don't even have noses, they just have little dot dot, and to come up with something so expressive with so little. So that's a little bit more about them. It was, the framing was a big expense, but it has proven worthwhile, and having some kind of beautiful objects in one's life, even of the feline variety, is a boon. And then Grix at Materia Grix, who has stopped posting at his channel, sadly for me and other viewers, but I understand his motivations for doing so. Now, come on, dude, I don't need you going back over there. See, he just wants to go back and mess with that. There's some plastic stuff over there that he wants to mess with. And he asks a good number of questions. And let's see, when did you publish your first book? Well, it was in 1999. It was like November or something, and I copyrighted it in 2000 because I thought the year 2000 was significant. This is my big poem, and what's that on it? I felt at this point, you know, here I am, an unsuccessful poet, but this is my magnum opus. I've got to do something with it. I've got to put it out. So I did, and now he needs a little claw clipping here, and he is impossible to do. So he's laying on me now down here, and he might all of a sudden just go, meh. Not maliciously, but those are like little scimitars. So I did, and then I put out in succession my first 5 books because that's just the way I do things. I mean, the first one is hard. You have to figure out the whole process of. I mean, this is the old days before print on demand existed, and so there was a lot of learning you had to do, and I did. And so then I put the other ones out. One of they offered you kind of, you could get a bookmark or you could get a card with your printing, and I got this for one of my other books, The Soul's Refinement. I wish I had gotten the bookmarks, more practical, but it doesn't matter anyhow. None of it matters. But that was it. Do I have a personal favorite poem written by you? Yes, I do. I would suppose. And let me not go with my even bigger poem, the Resurgence, with the terrible title. Bad title, but what can you do? It's bigger than the first. I like it because of its bigness. But in the world of poetry, a small poem is pretty much equal to a big poem. And there's a couple in here. This is the first book that I completed writing, and it was my third to be published. I think my third that I put out, and let's see, somewhere about 2/3 of the way through. In fact, well, let me read you a couple of them because they're both in their own way. These 2 poems mark the dividing line between myself as a person who didn't know what he was doing as a poet and a person who had clasped his métier, if you will. So neither of these have titles. So this one, shall I, impure curator, to ignominy beyond compare, with new romantic antics woo my disenchanted lady's care. No, nor will she be consoled. Her hot disapprobation told my conscience might be calmed or killed, which words unheard beget despair. Bah, pride abed with lowliness has fertilized this thorny glen, where deprivation in excess feeds steadlier than regimen. The truest loves may yet show false, self-abnegating cannibals at fasts revealed as festivals of farce, the curse on mortal men. And the reason I say it's my favorite is because it is the first poem where it existed in an earlier version. So you see it's 2 stanzas. There was a 3-stanza version completely different to this. And I think I destroyed it, but I can still remember the first stanza. So let me give you that first stanza and you'll hear it's a little bit different. Hey, potato, why so glum and slunk back in your easy chair? Listen here, potato, come along with us to the open air. No, no, for I am growing old. Stout green sprouts have taken hold. Within mine eyes will not be pulled, and with their growth grows my despair. So it was a revision of 3 stanzas of that sort that became 2 stanzas of this sort. And you may say you like that original version better, but that original version had no place it could take you. That was a dead end. And when I achieved my mature style, then I was able to move forward. And then the next poem that I wrote was the first poem that I wrote where it came smoothly. I still had to do some fiddling, but from then on, I mean, you always may have to do some fiddling, but, and this is the one that I have had up at my website. Pegged to the mercy tree since then, that day thy spear first pierced me, love. Many a year thus has it been, but thou hast not released me, love. Though I was but a child most shy before thy brilliant ecstasy, I took the blow whereon did die, for I the mortal part of me. But this remains a fetid shrine to hopes that have no hope to be, the dregs of dregs, and all are mine, and this is what I owe to thee. Forever then be grateful friends, and foes repent your fondest folly. The longest pleasure swiftly ends, and so this song, but not my story. So those 2 are my favorites in the sense that I remember them very well. That second one, those lines did not come out exactly as such, and they required some fiddling, and I fiddled, and I just, they're favorites not for what they are, but for the process and for what they signified upon the road. What authors have influenced you the most? And this is going to sound cockamamie, but my first cohesive book was a book of sonnets. You've got Shakespeare. I would also add Claude McKay to that, but Shakespeare, in one of my poems, I said, one of the sonnets, I said, your sonnets taught me how to write, and they did exactly that. Shakespeare is the indispensable poet if you are an English writer, particularly of poetry. And you only need to study a couple of his sonnets. I mean, I studied more than a couple, I would say, but any of your answers are there. I mean, you just have to learn that. So he, of course, and then of course the next one would be Dante. And I've related elsewhere how I happen to have fortuitously an early introduction to the poet. My sister, just for no discernible reason, but knowing that I liked poetry, picked up volume 1 of Dorothy Sayers' Penguin edition of Hell. And that whole journey resonated with me. I moved on, of course, from that to the Sinclair translation, which was a bilingual edition. I mean, with my recent experience with this Portuguese anthology, I think poetry should always be bilingual if it's translated. And then, of course, early on, Eliot talked about Dante too. But I just happened to be very lucky to my introduction to Dante was not some kind of like project, like if you had gotten it in school and you wanted to learn something, or if there was some ulterior motive to learning or to studying Dante. No, it was just a genuine encounter from the beginning. I hear some coughing out there, so we might have an interruption here. Favorite movies? Probably Workmeister Harmonies, directed by Bellatar. I haven't seen it for a long time, but that probably is my favorite movie. I like black and white movies as a thing. Where do you live? Chicago. If someone gave you a house anywhere in the world with the only condition that you spend there at least 10 months a year, where would you want that house to be? It doesn't have to be a house. It would be Tokyo. No question. Asking for a house in Tokyo is a little bit beyond the pale. Asking for an apartment there would be too. And of course, I've got these animals that I live with, so this is just pure fantasy. But if I had one place to live and to reside permanently, one city, it would be Tokyo. I mean, Osaka would be fine too. I'd do Osaka, you know. If you like to eat, there is no better city in the world. I don't know how Shanghai is these days. Shanghai was coming along cuisine-wise. Shanghai might be very fun as well, but Tokyo is the city that I know best. I don't know Shanghai very well. Tell us a bit about the craziest or one of the craziest travel experiences you've had. Well, nothing crazy. Something stupid, though, I'll relate from my first time in Japan. I forget where I think I moved to a hostel in Kyoto after that stay at the ryokan, I think was the word I was looking for, and stayed there for a while, and then got the, what is that, wanderlust, got the urge to move, and so I went to Tokyo and spent some time in Tokyo, and I don't know, back and forth between Kyoto and Tokyo, and I, more than once, I was not going to take the Shinkansen. That's too expensive. You know, I was just a kid. And so I would take the local trains and I would buy a ticket for whatever, the next stop. And then I would take the local trains all the way. You know, it's 3 hours by Shinkansen. So it was definitely a full day thing by taking the little local lines. And then wherever it was, Tokyo or Kyoto, I got out and I had my little phrase book. I had no ticket, of course, and I'm on the inside of the gate, and I would go up to the, there were always, you know, personnel around. I went up to the guy and I forget I had a little Japanese phrase book, and I said, "Excuse me, where do I go to buy a ticket?" in Japanese. And the guard just pointed me through the gates. And so that was how I managed to, you couldn't do something like that now. People, well, I was a bad kid. I know it seems innocuous now, and I can look back and laugh, but it was just a stupid thing. But now, is there any book that made you laugh or cry aloud? Laugh aloud, and it was the couple by, I think it's J.G. Farrell, The Troubles, and the what's the second one? Priscilla just recently read it, or no, did she read the Singapore Grip recently? God, I can't remember the title of the second one. He's got The Troubles, something, and then the Singapore Grip. And the second one takes place in India. But both of his books, and I suppose the third will as well, have towards the end a moment where you just can't hold it together anymore. You're just laughing so hysterically. I mean, it got me to question a little bit about what is the root cause of humor, because you're laughing at something that is kind of, in a way, stupid and kind of absurd and just wrong in a way, or, you know. but that book definitely, I'm sure that Gogol's Dead Souls had me laughing back in the day. It couldn't be otherwise. And of course Aristophanes has done as well as the Roman dramatists, Terence and Plautus. Definitely laugh out loud stuff. Freddie, man, I'm really going over here. I really got to try wrapping this up. Freddie at the Sluggish Reader, another great channel who has not posted in a while. I have a feeling that you are quite well traveled. Which place on earth do you love the best, and which places would you love to visit? Over the years, probably you would have to say Japan, but it's based upon familiarity. I know Japan pretty well. My partner and I have gone there more than once, and of course I spent a good chunk of time there when I was young. But it's not favorite because it's better than some other place. But the food there is just indescribable. I mean, I can't say I've never had a bad meal in Japan, but you're pretty hard pressed to get a bad meal there. So that's probably it. Where would I like to go? I'd like to go to Nigeria. I've working in the social services field. My job usually was held by with me Nigerian men frequently, and a couple of women as well. And so I've worked with a lot of Nigerians, not exclusively persons from Nigeria. I mean, there was one guy from Kenya and so forth, but for some reason, Nigerians have been in the field in which I worked for a long time. So and then of course there's all this literary stuff happening there now, and I would just like to see it and experience it for myself. I would like to go to Malaysia, although I've heard that the people there are not very nice, some of them. This is a subtle dig at Freddie because he hails from Malaysia. I was just teasing. So I would like to go there. I would like to go maybe to Argentina or now possibly Brazil. I just places I haven't been, but it's probably less of a pressing need for me now in the senescence of my life. I've done a fair number of things, and I can't begrudge the things that I haven't done. Now that you've crossed BookTube's Le Grand Quai, what would be your spiciest take on BookTube? I was wrong when I said that Brian at Bookish's question was the hardest. No, this was absolutely the hardest. I have no idea. I don't know what a spicy take on BookTube is. I don't know. I don't know, Freddie. I might have to get back to you on that one. Maybe you can tell me what your spicy take on BookTube is, and then I can use that to formulate my answer sort of in copy of what you put forth. That's really bad. I feel like I have failed with that one. But to cool down the heat from the previous question, what's your favorite pastry dessert? And well, pastry and dessert are different things. I don't really have a favorite dessert. I suppose a nice bowl of ice cream would be good, but it can't be some of this stuff that we have all over here where it's like it's been pumped with air and we had there's this brand in the US called Breyers, and we had a butter pecan. It was on sale or something, and all of the pecans were rancid. So it can't be something like, it has to be something a little bit better. In Europe, they have some nice varieties that are pretty good. So that would be for dessert. But for pastry, just give me a basic croissant. I like pastries. I like them all. At Paris Baguette, when I like to go, I've tried everything and loved everything but gradually it's reduced to just the basic croissant is good for me. I really like a basic, well-made croissant. Of course, you can't get them here or there. I mean, you know, stores like Costco will sell you a bag, but they're not really croissants. They're just big mush things in the shape of a croissant. Of course, the premier bakers in the world all seem to be Asians. I think Japan started it, but now Koreans and Chinese are getting in on it too. So, you know, Beard Papa, I think, is one of the Chinese brands. Yeah, just a basic croissant. I also like the what's called the Portuguese tart, but I really like, I think, the Chinese version that you can get everywhere in Chinatown. The Chinese have their own version of the Portuguese tart, so you order the Portuguese tart. It's just a little bit different. I mean, a little bit bigger than the Portuguese would do. The Portuguese are fine if you get a good one there. Generally, with a Chinese bakery, you don't really have to worry. It's going to be a good one. And then I just realized I typed desert instead of dessert, but I'm not going to bother editing that in case you do have any hot sandy landscape of choice. Well, I do. I like, there's a national park in New Mexico called White Sands National Park. I'd like to go there again. It's dunes, I guess, white sand. I'd like to see it. Closer to home in Indiana, we have the Indiana Dunes National Park. It just became a national park. It was a state park, and everybody thought, I don't know if this deserves to be a national park. It's good that it's a national park. I haven't been there since I was a kid, so I can't speak for that, but I did like White Sands National Park. That actually takes care of the questions. On the page wherein I asked for questions, Macherzynska, Macherzynska commented, I can tell you're seeking idolatrous fatherhood in historical context of me, data, and internet culture evolution, if any, LOL, by following years. So I wasn't really quite sure what the comment signified, but I think there's some substance there that I can agree with. I think, I mean, I don't know. It's been a year since I started this whole experiment. I don't know where all of this YouTube shenaniganery is going or what it means. But I know a lot of people are questioning this occasionally. Shelley Swearingen at her channel recently just had a video. In fact, I'll link to it where she talks about some of that. I mean, what exactly are we doing here? What this community? For me, it's been wonderful being able to. The word coming to my lips is commune, but that's not exactly the right word, but being able to form community. I guess commune is to form community with people who read and people who think about things and people who care about books. It has been so far the most wonderful experience, and it runs one a little frazzled at times because there's so many things to watch, and one can get caught up in the drive to produce content. But for me, so far, it has been fun, and I will keep on doing it. I am so grateful for everybody who comes and watches this channel. It's sort of an out-of-the-blue whimsy to have done. And as other booktubers have said when they've made this kind of video, it feels like nothing but good has come. I mean, I'm sure there are downsides to everything. I've lived long enough to understand that aspect of living. And usually the thing that is a good thing is usually exactly that same thing in a different way is a bad thing. But so far it's been wonderful. I feel that I do have a community of friends. And even if somebody didn't come and ask a question to this request, I mean, I thank you who did. I really appreciate these questions. But if you're just even a casual interloper here, I appreciate it. It amazes me that those of us who are doing this turn on the phone or the pad or whatever it is we have and talk for a little bit, and a few days later we have something online that people are looking at. It's been a great thing for me because for most of my adult life, as a writer, as I say, writing is a extremely solitary activity. And there has not, since college days, been a community of people to be able to talk with or to about books and about ideas. And it's been almost like a return to those days. So I had best cut it short before we get to a 90-minute video. I am going to guess that this is my longest video of all time. I am really pleased with this cessation of checking the stats, which has come with the 1,000 mark. I still don't know what the future of this channel will be. I'm open to doing as Grix is doing and just taking a hiatus or taking a permanent hiatus or what have you. But for the time being, it is pleasurable, it is fun. And I was starting to say something and then I interrupted myself and now I don't know what I was going to say. So I will rest it there. Oh, I really like this fact. Instead of looking at the stats and stuff, for some reason, and I don't know why, but once I cross that 1,000 mark, I just don't look at it. And it's nice because it's kind of, there's something a little bit unnatural about it. I know, I realize that YouTube is kind of like the casino, and they want you to be producing content, as they would say, for free, that they can monopolize or they can capitalize. And I mean, whatever it's like the casino that will let you win here and there, and you win and then you go back and then you spend more and you lose a lot more. And paying attention to the stats, I think, does that. You look at the stats and you think, oh, and you're trying to get more viewers or more subscribers or whatever. And I think that's just the casino manipulating you. To use a phrase that doesn't need to be as quaint and curious, Volumes James has said, it is what it is. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.